Y'all, it's our last worksheet. And we only have two topics, two more videos, and then we're done. Okay, so for this section, we're going to talk about congruent and similar triangles, okay? First topic, we're going to focus on understanding congruent triangles. Second one, we'll talk about similar triangles. So, you know I love a good definition. So, two triangles are said to be congruent if they are the same shape and size, okay? So we have to be the same shape and the same size. So you could literally lay one on top of the other and you wouldn't notice the difference, okay? Now, corresponding side and angles, um, oh, sorry, I was like, wait, what did I say there? So corresponding sides and angles are sides and angles that are in the same relative position in two or more geometric figures. That's going to be really important in just a bit, okay? So when we talk about corresponding, it's just things that are in the same location. So if this is triangle one, and I'm going to draw them where they look basically the same just because I'm not creative enough. And then this is triangle two. And let's say I labeled this side A and this side big A. Well, they're in the same spot. They're in the same location from one triangle to the next. So they would be considered corresponding angles. Okay. And then I could label this one little b and big B. They would be considered corresponding angles because they're in the same location from one triangle to the next. And then finally, we could have C and big C. Again, they would be considered corresponding angles because they're in the same spot. Okay. Now, I'm going to go back and do the same thing, but for the sides. So the sides that I have outlined in red would be considered corresponding sides. They represent the same location from one triangle to the next. And then this side right here, the one that goes from B to C, and the one that goes from big B to big C, those would be considered corresponding sides. They're in the same location from one triangle to the next. And then finally, the side that goes from A to C and big A to big C, those would be considered corresponding sides. They're in the same location from one triangle to the next. When we talk about corresponding, that's what we mean. They're in the same location. Now, sometimes you'll have triangles that are not in the same, they're not like oriented the same way. So you may have to like redraw them so they're kind of like in the same direction. So it's easier to see those corresponding sides. But corresponding sides just mean same location relative, same relative location from one figure to the next. Okay. Now we do have some notation that we need to understand. When we're talking about triangles, we'll use just a little triangle symbol and then we'll name our triangle. Generally, we name it by the angles. Okay. So we have angle little a, little b, little c. So I could say, hey, this is triangle little a, little b, little c. And this is triangle big A, big B, big C. Okay. So that's our notation. And then if we want to say things are congruent, we use this weird symbol right here. So if I want to say that um, triangle A, B, and C is congruent, that means it's the same. Congruent to triangle A, B, C, symbolically, what I would do, I would say triangle little a, little b, little c is congruent to triangle big A, big B, big C. So we use that equal sign with like a little curvy wave on top. That means congruent. Okay. Now, we have some criteria for congruence beside me just saying that these two triangles, even though they're not, that they're congruent, okay? So use your imagination up here, pretend they're exactly the same shape and size, okay? Now, we have three different situations that we can check for to check for congruence, okay? We could have side, side, side situations, okay? So this means all three sides on one triangle are equal to corresponding sides on the second triangle, okay? So if you're basically given all three sides on two triangles, see if corresponding sides match up. Therefore, you would have congruence, okay? You can also have a side, angle, side. So you have a side and then an angle and then a side. And you have to be careful here because you want the two sides to be the two sides that make the given angle, okay? So if two sides and one angle on one triangle are equal to two sides and one angle in a second triangle, you have two angles that are congruent. And then finally, you can have an angle, side, angle. So you have an angle, a side, and then an angle. So you have the side between two separate angles. Okay, so if two angles in one side of one triangle are equal to two sides or to two angles in one side on another triangle, The triangles are congruent. So for example one here, it says determine if the following pairs of triangles are congruent and then state that you've got a side, side, side situation, side, or angle, side, angle. Okay. So for part A, we have these two triangles. They are definitely not oriented the same way. So it may be helpful for you to like redraw them so that they are. Okay. That is totally up to you. If you wanted to, let's say that we redraw this one right here. So if I were to draw it, I would say, okay, its base is down here at 10. And then we have this side, which is 11. And then we have this longest side is 12. I just made it worse. Let me fix it. All right, so now they're kind of oriented the same way. So we kind of scooted this little puppy over here. We just sort of flipped it around, okay, so that it's facing the same way as the other one. And we're going to circle a few things. So we notice the base is the same as the base from the other triangle that we flipped around. We notice that this side length here of 11 matches on the other triangle. And then red, we have this side length of 12. It corresponds to this other side length of 12. So we would say officially that yes, these triangles are congruent. And the reason why is we have a side, side, side situation. We've matched corresponding sides. All three sides match. Okay. For part B, notice here we have an angle, another angle, and then we have a side that goes between those two angles. Okay, now these two triangles are definitely not oriented the same way. So let's take this one right here and let's reorient it. Okay, so I want to draw it to where this 51-degree angle is in the upper left-hand corner. I want my 39-degree angle to be in the right-hand corner. Okay. And then this longest side between the two angles, it's 19. So that's 19 meters. And then we have 51 degrees, and then we have 39 degrees. So are these two triangles congruent? Well, let's check. Well, we have 51 degrees and 51 degrees. That's nice. We have 39 degrees and 39 degrees. That's great. Okay, and they're in corresponding locations. And then we have this length between the two triangles of 19 meters. Okay, so between the 51-degree angle and the 39-degree angle, we have this length of 19 meters. So all the corresponding pieces line up here. So we would say, are these two triangles congruent? Yes, they are. Why? Well, we have an angle side angle congruency thing happening here. Okay, so then part C. So I'm probably not going to redraw part C because they're kind of like there's almost a mirror image from one to the other. So even though they're not oriented the same way, they're going to be pretty easy to see. So just imagine there's like a little mirror and we're seeing like a mirror image. Okay. So what do we have going on here? Well, we have two sides and an angle. Okay. So let's see if corresponding stuff lines up. So first of all, we have a 121-degree angle and they're in the same spot. We have these other two like little acute angles, okay, but the obtuse angle here that's given is 121 degrees. Those match up, okay? We then have this side of 49 meters and this side of 49 meters. They are in corresponding, like they're corresponding sides. They're in the same location from one figure to the next. And then finally, we have this side here that matches this side here. So if we were asked, are these triangles congruent? We would say for sure. These triangles are congruent. Why? Well, we had a side angle side congruency check. Okay, so far A, B, and C, we were able to check the triangles that were given were congruent. Let's check part D. So part D, we have two angles and a side for each triangle. Okay, so we have some stuff that matches here. Let's see. We have this angle that would match this angle. We'll use these little curves to indicate that things kind of match from one triangle to the next or even within the same triangle. And then we have this angle here. So these triangles are not oriented the same way. If I were to redraw them, I could draw them. I'm going to draw this one, the one on the right. I'm going to redraw it so it's kind of oriented the way the one on the left is. So if I wanted to redraw it, I could redraw it like this. Okay, and I would say we have this angle, and then we have this side right here, okay? but it does not match this side right here. Actually, I wanted to do that in green. I picked the wrong color. So these two sides, unfortunately, they're not the same. Okay, so I have this side has two little tick marks, which means it does not match the one little tick mark here. So if we were asked if these are congruent, we'd have to say probably not. Okay, there it seems like we're missing a little bit of information. We have two sides and then we have an angle, but we don't have wait, we have two angles and a side, but we don't have the side that goes between the two angles. And then we're told that this side right here doesn't match this side right here. So that tells me they're not the same. Okay. So I would say no, they're not congruent here. Okay. Though they look it, it looks as if we're probably missing a little bit of information here. All right, so that's it. Again, congruent just means same shape, same size. If we want to talk symbols, make sure you're aware of this notation right here. When we talk about corresponding sides, they're angles or sides that are in the same location from one figure to the next. And to check for congruence, we can do a side, side, side comparison, a side, angle, side comparison, or an angle, side, angle comparison. Okay? In the next video, it'll be our very, very last one. We'll talk about similar figures or similar, I think very specifically triangles, but similar triangles.